What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Now that we are about a month into 2021, I think now it's a good time than ever to talk about my top 5 video games of 2020, because even though the world came to a screeching halt with this life-changing event that is the pandemic, we were nonetheless blessed with so many great titles from so many genres throughout the year, making those early months a lot more manageable. So without further delay, let's get this list started. Starting off this list is my number 5 pick, which goes to Watch Dogs Legion. Now, I follow a lot of media outlets out there, and I was surprised to see that not many people included this game on their list. I do understand that a lot of great games did come out last year, and perhaps this game was bumped off their top 5 or top 10 altogether, but come on. It deserves some mention, some acknowledgement, because at the end of the day, it was a great game. I mean, it looked amazing. It's definitely a showcase for your PlayStation 5 or your Xbox Series X. They certainly didn't hold back when it came to the ray tracing. It felt like it was always raining and there were puddles of water everywhere, showcasing that beautiful reflection from the ray tracing. And also, it played amazing. The gameplay was great, the gunplay was good, and I like the fact that they gave us early access to the drones and to the spider bot early on, making some of those early missions very exciting from the get-go. And finally, one of my favorite part about the game is the gimmick itself, which is that every and any NPC is recruitable, thereby making them playable. I thought this was going to be a disaster, to be honest with you, but it turned out to be a success because I love looking for those unique job classes, those unique characters that had unique abilities. And when I did discover one, it was so fun playing them, like the beekeeper or the living statue or the hypnotist. Those were very, very fun to play, and that's when the game really opens up, especially with the permadeath option, which I kept on, and I hope a lot of people did, because that adds to the tension of the game. I played with mostly one character for at least half the game. When he died, it affected me. I felt I didn't play the game for 2 days because my main character, who looked like Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors, he died after about 20 hours and he's dead permanently. And I was like, oh, I can't, it was so hard. It was so hard. I didn't think it would affect me because I had other characters with the same job. And so meaning he was easily replaceable. But when he died, because I fell in love with his characteristics, his English Cockney accent, and when he accidentally died because I got careless and I didn't have a proper loadout, and when he died, I was devastated. So much so that my next 4 characters died just as easily because I didn't care anymore. But that just shows you how awesome this game was when it came to permadeath, when it came into that anyone can be your weapon gimmick. And I just, like I said, this is one of the reasons why I love this game. And the last reason is because of its setting. I love the London near future dystopian, the cyberpunk setting that it had going for it. I mean, I thought it depicted that near future setting a lot better than Cyberpunk 2077 did itself, which is kind of ironic. So with that being said, this is why Watch Dogs Legion is my number 5 game of 2020. My number 4 pick goes to a game that I currently don't own physically, but it is a game that I played day 1 on Xbox Game Pass, and I think that's a dead giveaway on what this game is, but it is Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Unlike Watch Dogs Legion, where I felt like it didn't get enough attention, enough acknowledgement, Ori and the Will of the Wisp got universal praise. I mean, what is there to say about this game that hasn't been said already? It is magnificent. It is a great sequel to an already amazing game, and I thought they really couldn't do much to improve upon the original game, but they did. The graphics look even better. There's a lot more particle effects than ever before, making the entire world, the entire environment a lot more vivid and a lot more believable. And the gameplay even better. Before in Ori 1, you had to have this sprite, this fairy, do your attacking for you, whereas now you get an actual sword. They made good use of Hollow Knight's charm-like system in order to equip so many different perks and weapons and items and attributes making your character more robust than ever before. And also the level design is much improved from the original. I'll never forget the water level, and also this one level that was mostly dark, and you had to follow this one light source around this from a bug, and you had to navigate this entire section in near complete darkness and had to rely on that light source as you go through about it. And it was an amazing experience from beginning to end. I loved the boss fights, the few boss fights that it had, and the other being more like set pieces, but nonetheless very exciting. And of course the ending was just perfect. They can literally end the series right here, right there, or they can continue it and make infinitely more Ori games, and I wish they would, because I wouldn't want this game to end. Like I said, this game deserved all the praise that it got, and so I'm happy to include it as my 4th favorite game of 2020. My 3rd pick for my favorite game of 2020 goes to a game that I wasn't particularly excited for in the very beginning, partly because I knew of its story already, I knew of its origin, and maybe because I'm at that point falling away a little bit from JRPG altogether. And I guess you guys know what I'm talking about, and that goes to Final Fantasy VII Remake. And let me tell you guys, I'm glad I played this game day one, because I was captivated from the very early moments. I mean, when you see the opening cinematics with Midgar, zoomed in, train, Cloud coming out, I nearly shed a tear. Hearing that amazing rearranged soundtrack, seeing Cloud in just modern graphics, and Barrett and fully voiced characters, and the graphics, wow, like the graphics look amazing. I've seen so many great, amazing PlayStation 4 graphics, from Bloodborne to Horizon Zero Dawn to Uncharted 4 and Last of Us and all that. And Final Fantasy VII is gotta be up there with some of the best PlayStation 4 graphics. And once again, even with the gameplay was, I appreciated how streamlined it was, how fast and snappy the menu system was, and it didn't require too much grinding, which once again, as an adult gamer, you appreciate it. It didn't waste your time. But then again, I take that back a little bit. It did waste your time a little bit. There were some dungeons that felt a little too long, a little padded, but once again, you overlook some of its faults, because there are so many good things that this game was doing. The graphics look amazing, especially with the conversations that you had with the other characters, and I like the fact that it really fleshed out that part of the game. In the original, it was only supposed to be 5 to 6 hours in that early Midgar section, but here they fleshed it out to 25-30 hours, and you got to know not only the characters even more, like Jesse and the rest of the Avalanche members, but you got to know the actual city, Midgar. And I think that's what captivated me even more, because I actually got to see Midgar. Everything from the train scene when you were going back down after blowing up the reactor, and when you went above and into that town where Jesse's father was, and then you parachuted. I mean, it was just like, wow, we were seeing so many new moments that we didn't see in the original, and I was all smiles. I was all smiles while playing the game. I was just like enjoying every moment of it, from the gameplay to the graphics to the soundtrack. My goodness, this game had me glued to my TV the entire time through, and in regards to the ending, I loved it. I know it was split, like some people hated it, some people loved it. I'm in the loved it camp, because they can run away with the ending now. They can do whatever they want, and I'm excited for that. So I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to, for those that haven't played it, I don't want to spoil it, but I like the ending. The game overall, highly recommended, and that's why it's my number 3rd pick. The runner-up for my favorite game of 2020 needs very little introduction. It is one of the highest selling games of 2020. It was a critical and, of course, a commercial success. Its predecessors were excellent games of themselves, and it seems to only get better with every iteration, and which ultimately led us to this particular title. And it's a game that came out just in time, a game that came out during the beginning of the pandemic and its subsequent lockdowns. And it's a game that helped soothe our souls. It's a game that occupied a lot of our time during those very trying and very confusing moments of the early days of the pandemic. And you guys know what I'm talking about. That's Animal Crossing New Horizon. Now, by virtue of just the amount of hours I put into this game should be number one. But it just goes to show you how special number one is to me. But this game this is the most hours I've ever put into any single game. Just to put it into any perspective, I've been gaming for 30 years. Half of the games I've ever played are JRPGs, and a lot of those are epic RPGs, from Xenoblades to Xenosagas to Final Fantasy's Dragon Quest, 80 plus hour titles, 100 plus hours titles, and this game eclipsed all that. I put in, and of course, and mind you, I didn't put as much hours compared to other extreme Animal Crossing players out there with 900 plus hours, but nonetheless, 300 plus hours on any one game is nothing to laugh at. It's incredible, because as you can see over here, I go from one game to the next. I'm not a perfectionist, I'm not a completionist. I just get enough to complete a game, maybe 60-70% through, and I move on. But this game, like I said, it came out during the beginning of the pandemic, and this game greeted me in the morning. It was the game for me to play before going to bed, and it was there for me for that first month. I think this was the only thing I played for that first month, and it accumulated like 300 plus hours. It was something to behold. I love the music, the gameplay. Like I said, every Animal Crossing only gets better from game to game, and this is the best one yet. It needs no introduction. Everyone knows 27 million players have played this game, and we love it. I love it, and I can't wait for more updates. I don't know how they can improve upon this. Actually, they can streamline it further, but then that's really giving it away. I think we still need to work hard for certain things, so they can't make it that much easier, but just add more stuff. They can do that by updates, not necessarily making a new one, but just give us some more seasonal updates. And I think my number one game should have gone to Animal Crossing New Horizon just for the amount of hours I put into this game, but surprisingly it didn't. Instead, it goes to a game that completely caught me off guard, completely came out of left field, wasn't even on my radar whatsoever, and that game is Yakuza Like a Dragon. I mean, you could say that this game got lucky because it was my first Xbox Series X game, so I had no choice but to play it, but I'm glad I did because it was phenomenal. I'm not strange to the Yakuza franchise. I did play Kiwami 1 and 2 and 0 for a little bit, but I never got to beat them, and I don't consider them some of my favorite series, but I played this game, and all of a sudden, now I want to go back to those older titles and play them and hopefully beat them, because this game completely, like I said, completely surprised me. I knew that it was an RPG now. The JRPG went from a brawler, open world brawler into a JRPG style, but then, wow, I love the battle system so much so that I wish other JRPGs would adopt it, kind of like Persona, future Persona games. I wish they would just copy the same battle system where, the screen doesn't change when you make an encounter. Just keep it as is when you see your enemies, just right there and then fight around pedestrians and objects and stuff like that. It was so good, and I enjoyed it so much, especially because of the main protagonist himself, Ichiban Kasuga. He's probably top 5, one of my favorite protagonists of all time. He's absurdly charismatic, unrealistically optimistic, but that's what makes him so charming and so endearing, is because he just has this can-do, never give up attitude. And I can't help but admit that every time I play him and every time he goes through this bad situation and gets out of it, it bleeds onto not just the other characters that he's playing with, but it bleeds onto me, like the player. I feel good. after playing a session of Yakuza, because you know this guy's always fighting for the greater good, and it's so cheesy. That's the thing. It's very cheesy at times. It feels satirical. It feels like a parody. It's all sorts. You get all sorts of feelings about this game, and it's all encompassing in that regard. Like, wow, like what is it trying to say? But aside from all that, once again, the gameplay is good. The graphics, while it doesn't technically showcase the power of the new systems, it looked good nonetheless. And especially when you're in some of the areas with lots of lights and signs, and you know, like that part in Yokohama, or I think of the other town, Osaka, where there's so many neon lights everywhere. I mean, it was like I was staring at that for a couple of minutes because it looks so good. The battle system is great, and then even the story was all over the place in terms of emotions. It got very melodramatic, and there were moments when it was just flat out hilarious. And the beginning, while it started off very slow in the beginning, but the ending, oh my goodness, the ending was just like a soap opera action film. And like I said, I never got to finish any of the Yakuza games before, but I knew that it more or less played out that way in terms of the storyline. And in this game, oh, they took it to the next level in my opinion. So that's why, and the fact that, like I said, it surprised me. All the other games, I knew what I was getting into. I knew what I was getting into with Animal Crossing, with Final Fantasy VII Remake, with Ori and the Will of the Wisps, with Watch Dogs Legion. But Like a Dragon, I had no expectations, with nothing, with no preconceived notions, is what made the game stand out. It just completely surprised me from beginning to the end, and that's why it's my #1 game of 2020. Not only that is my list for my top 5 video games of 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with my list or disagree? Do you think Yakuza is not that great of a game? Do you think Animal Crossing is overrated? Final Fantasy VII overrated? And yes, maybe Watch Dogs deserves a little bit more mention. Tell me what you guys think. Comment down below and tell me what your top 5 games are. And as always, see you guys at the next video. Thanks for watching.